Hello everyone, welcome back to HP Gaming Garage. In this part, we'll continue learning more on the previous topic.
Now, with any playtest, you should be looking not just at the game, but also at the players. Look at facial expressions, look at body language. If a player has their eyes wide open, they're leaning forward, they're not even blinking, they look completely focused, you know they're engaged with the game. If a player's leaning back, looking away from the game, maybe sneaking glances at their phone, they have to keep asking questions about what you or someone else just said, like they're not paying attention, then there's something pulling them out of the experience. When players are excited or bored or have other strong reactions, it's usually pretty obvious, right? If someone gets up from their chair, screams, "Woo!" and pumps their fist, that's pretty strong positive reaction that they just did something that made them feel powerful. If someone looks like they're about to throw their controller through the nearest window, they're probably very frustrated, right? Look at what's happening in the game when you get these strong reactions, and really observe here. Don't just rely on your tester's verbal feedback after the test is over. You'd be amazed how often a playtester will be very clearly bored through the entire experience, but then when you ask them at the end what they thought, they'll gush about how fun it was, and how this was the best game experience that they've ever had. And they might just be trying to be polite to you, or they might be remembering their experience wrong, but their verbal feedback will be in conflict with what you actually observed, which is why actually watching the players during the test is important. Now, one question I get a lot from novice designers is how to complete their game. How complete does their game need to be before they start playtesting? Or they'll just make the mistake of assuming that their game has to be 100% complete before they start any testing, so they hold off on their first playtest way longer than they should. The reality is that how much effort you put into making your game feel complete depends on your test audience. If you're testing solo, just yourself, you really don't need to have fancy graphics, you don't even need a complete rule set. Your prototype can be very rough and just barely working and have bugs all over the place, because you know that you're there to just focus on whether the mechanics are doing what they need to do. And if you're playing with other professional designers or very experienced playtesters, it can likewise be pretty rough. They'll understand what an early prototype is, and they'll treat it as such. If you're playing with people who aren't designers and who haven't done any playtest before, they may never have seen a prototype before. And when they play games, they're used to playing professionally published games that are already complete. For these people, if they're used to playing games with professionally printed plastic-coated playing cards and you give them a set of handwritten index cards, or if they're used to playing published video games and you give them something that just has a few squares or cubes instead of normal graphics on the screen, they may focus too much on surface things like the way the things look or that there's no sound. If you're far enough along to be testing with people who aren't familiar with prototypes, you have two options. One is just spend some extra time just setting their expectations before they see the game so that they understand what a prototype is, what it looks like, and what you're looking for, so that they don't focus too much on the parts that you already know are unfinished, because that would be a waste of your time. The other option is to spend a little bit of time working on the visuals to make it look reasonably competent so that the first impression isn't overpowering. Now, unless you're a professional designer who's built up your own stable of playtesters over the years, or you're working with a publisher who has their own playtest network, you'll have to deal with finding playtesters on your own. Now, you might be able to ask close friends and family, and of course you can test your game yourself, but once you're ready to test with strangers, there isn't really a find playtester button you can push, so where do you find them? Well, here you have some options. If you're designing a tabletop game, look for any game stores in your area, places where you'd buy board games and card games, places that would host Magic the Gathering or other TCG tournaments. Those kinds of stores often cultivate a local community of people who play games, and many of them also serve the local game design community if there is one. Some even have regular playtest nights for anyone if there's a lot of designers in the area. Visit the stores and ask if they do anything like that. The people who own these stores probably know more about the local scene than you do, and they may be able to point you in the right direction. A lot of tabletop gamers also play video games, so this may be worth looking at even if you're making a video game. College campuses are also good places to find testers. Many students play games and could probably be convinced to test an unfinished one. If you want to guarantee finding testers on a college campus, just bring a large pizza with you and offer to feed anyone who tests your game. Some schools actually have game-related classes or even full degree programs, so if you live near one of those, it's even easier because there may be regular playtest events on campus just for their existing students. Also, thanks to the internet, remote testing is very possible as well. That does make it harder to directly observe your testers, but it also vastly increases the potential size of your playtester pool. For tabletop games, there are digital programs like Tabletop Simulator and Tabletopia that are virtual tabletops, where you can just import your game's assets digitally and then be able to play as if you were in person. Now, setting up a game in these programs and being able to actually play a game does have a bit of a learning curve at first, so you'll want to get some experience with it before you invite other people, but these are used pretty widely within the board game design community because they are very convenient for being able to test from everywhere and not having to keep a large collection of physical game design materials like tokens and custom cards and dice. For video games, of course, you can just send the executable to testers directly, or host it somewhere and have them download it. In either case, there are online playtest and design communities wherever you look. Check for public Facebook groups, Reddit boards, search Twitter, open Discord servers, or similar social media sites to just see what kind of groups you can find. Join them, lurk for a little bit, and see what kinds of things are posted there and what the community standards are, and then if it seems like a good group and you feel like you can do so, post your game or a request for testers in whatever way seems normal for that group. And if you do playtest online so that you can't be there in person, you can try to get creative with observation. For example, if you're testing a board game live on Tabletopia, you can always try to set up a Discord or Zoom video call so that you can see everyone else's faces as they're playing. At any rate, keep in mind that part of the process of making a game is playtesting, and that part of that process is finding testers. And that is something that will take time and effort, beyond just making your game. Last thing I'll close this video with is what you can do when playtesting other people's games. Because once you start asking for other people's time to playtest your game, you'll probably also find opportunities to test other people's games. You should take advantage of those opportunities. If you test for another designer, it's much easier to ask them to test your game in return. And if you're particularly good with testing and have other designers who know they can come to you for useful feedback, it's a great way to have other game designers who owe you one. Keep in mind here, I'm talking about individuals making games as hobby projects. For professional video game development studios, testing is often an actual job that is a paid position in QA. And while many studios do also ask for unpaid beta testers, that usually happens further along in development and is usually done more as a marketing gimmick or getting some player data than actually seeking personalized feedback. Now, some of this advice is just the same as what I said you should do as a designer, but in reverse. Right? As a tester, you want to understand the purpose of this playtest and its goals so you can act accordingly. If they say you're just testing to see if it's fun or not, then be expressive in the moment in terms of how the game makes you feel, so they can see clearly where you're enjoying yourself or not. If they're testing for game balance, play to win, be ruthless and merciless, try your best to find rules exploits. If they're testing for usability, talk through your thought process out loud of what you're doing and how you're trying to do it. If they don't tell you the purpose, ask. Now, as we've discussed earlier in this course, there are many different kinds of players. Right? Some are more naturally social and want to interact mostly with other players instead of systems. Some players are highly competitive and confrontational. Some players are looking for a challenge to show how clever or skilled they are. Others want a more casual experience. Some will be generous, even in a competitive game, trying to make friends and get other players to owe them favors. Some players will lie on purpose to other players and use that deception to gain an advantage. Think about what kind of player you want to be simulating during this test, or ask the designer how they'd like you to act. Keep in mind that you can do this when you're playtesting your own game as well. If you're playing all different sides of a multiplayer game with yourself, try taking on different personas for each player and see how they interact with each other. Look for what we call edge cases, going all in on a single move or strategy to see what happens. Not all playtests require this. If you're just trying to play the game the way it was meant to be played and you're just seeing if it's fun, then you probably don't need to do this. But a lot of game design breaks down when it's taken to the extremes, so if you're looking for gameplay or balance problems, doing the opposite of what the designer intended, or doing one thing to the exclusion of every other thing, will often uncover these kinds of problems. This may mean you're not playing to win, because a lot of times the all-of-one-thing strategy is terrible for winning, but that's fine if the point is just to see what happens. Speaking of things that aren't great for strategy for winning, talking out loud about what you're thinking and why you're taking certain actions can be very helpful to designers. even if it means letting your opponents in a competitive game know what strategy you're using. If you walk through your thought process, it can give the designers clues about how you as a tester are approaching their game, what kinds of things you're considering and strategizing at any given moment, and whether there are any parts of the game that you clearly misunderstand. And since your goal as a playtester is to identify problems, certainly call it out if you see something that is an actual problem, or a perceived problem, or even just a potential problem that isn't a problem yet but might be in the future. And as you'll know yourself when you design games, game design is harsh and it's difficult, and making entertaining games that meet their design goals involves a lot of hard work and a lot of iteration. So even if you play a game that belongs to someone else that's absolute trash, have some sympathy and some professional respect for the designer, that they're at least putting their game in front of other people and trying to make it better. The more issues you raise, the more awkward and embarrassing it's going to potentially get for them. You can still give constructive criticism of their game and alert them to these problems without having to be a bully about it, right? Tell them everything that's wrong with their game, obviously, but it costs you nothing to be kind while delivering the bad news. Now, there are plenty of videos you can probably look for online to search for how to do playtesting or QA, but I'll leave you with this one in particular, which is specifically about how playtesting is handled at a large game company. You'll notice some of the more advanced things they talk about involving collection of large amounts of data are not going to be practical or even possible for a small project like one that you might create on your own, but their process in general is followed pretty widely as just best practice for running playtests. So while this video frames this as how Valve runs playtests, they're just the company that talked openly about their process a lot. In reality, a lot of game companies treat playtesting similarly to what's shown here.
And with that, we're at the end of another episode. So finish it up by taking your assessment so you can get your certification from HP Gaming Garage. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.